Country Confidential.
We are going to talk, before we talk about the album, Georgia football predictions. What do you hope happens this year? Your QB looks fire.
Yeah. I mean, we're taking it all the way for sure.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, honestly though, Texas looks pretty good, and frick, who else? I was watching some of the games. I mean, Bama looks great too already, but we'll see.
I love it. I know. I always love asking him, like, what are everybody's predictions for football this year? I asked Travis Denning the same thing, and he was like, we're going all the way.
1,000%. I think so. I think especially with the bracket, I think it's going to be interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I'm super excited about the bracket. I have wanted something like that for a really long time since I've been in college, but we won't see how long ago that was. But I want to talk to you. You have been teasing us with new music for a long time. When did it hit you that you're like, okay, like we got to do a debut project? Like it's time. Was there a moment that you just were kind of like, that's it?
Yeah.
No more singles, no more teasing. Let's do an album.
Yeah, I think right after, I guess we did an EP last summer, maybe, but right after that EP came out, we released Boys Back Home, and I was like, we gotta have a project. Like, cause I don't know if I can technically call myself an artist without a project. Like everybody's got a record, a debut record, and I was like, we've done so many singles, and I think I came to the team here at Sony, and I was like, we gotta do a record, and they're like, all right, let's go. So we started kind of gearing up. I want to say back in November, and honestly, having Boys pop off was a good like start. You know, it was like the kind of little momentum we needed to like have a project, because you don't want to do it too early either. Yeah. So I think it's the perfect time, honestly.
I mean, I liked Boys Back Home. Not everybody liked Boys Back Home, but we liked Boys Back Home. We loved it. But 15 songs. I feel like you are in this really nice sweet spot where I can sit down and listen to your album and feel not overwhelmed. I feel like we are in the world of double, triple, let's drop everything every week. And for me, it's overwhelming. I don't get to enjoy all of your hard work. So my question for you was, how hard was it to narrow it down to 15? I feel like you're songwriting a lot. You've probably had stuff in the bank for a while. How hard was it just to pick 15?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, we probably had 100 songs to pick from. I mean, that might be a little dramatic, but we had a bunch, like a lot of songs to pick from. And so we kind of narrowed it down to 15, and then one of the songs just didn't feel right on the record. So I didn't end up putting that on, and then ended up writing Mid-20s Crisis right before we had to turn it in, and then that ended up being the 15th again. So it all worked out perfect.
I love it. I feel like naming your album is like naming your child.
So hard,
especially when it's a debut project. Like people are going to look back 10 years from now and be like, remember his debut album called this? Yeah. And why was that just the perfect title? When you wrote it, did you know you were going to go into your team the next day and be like, okay, we're switching things up. Like, we work some stuff.
Yeah, we didn't even have a title at all. And so they were kind of on me. I mean, we were so close. Like we were trying to get vinyls pressed. And I think I was still too late to like even get it on the day of, because I just take forever to do things. But yeah, we didn't even have a title, and I didn't want to look back and see my debut record was just my name, or it was just a random song on the record. At least for the first one. I think the second, third, maybe you do something, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted something really specific to what I was going through, and I wanted it to kind of glue together and mesh together. And yeah, I was praying hard on that I could just find the name, because I didn't want to name it. I mean, I think Alyssa checked in on me every day. She's like, "Do you have the title yet? What's the title?" I was like, "I don't know what the title is." I even took a few fishing trips by myself just to think on it, and I couldn't come up with anything. And I was praying, and then one night I woke up at like 4 a.m. and it just hit me. God was like, "Hey, here's the title for your record. Like, now you got to write the song." So I think that was on a Tuesday. We had a photo shoot for the record that earlier that day. So we are doing this photo shoot for this record we don't even know the title of. And then later that night, I woke up at like 4 a.m. and that was it. And so I wrote it in my phone, and I woke up the next day and flew off to a radio tour. And that whole weekend, I just kind of slowly put the song together. I think we've had a show in Chattanooga, and in the green room, I kind of finished it there. And I called Jason here at the label, and I was like, "You're going to hate me, but here's the title. And he was like, no, I don't hate you. I love it. This is it. This is perfect. So
I
it
know.
all came together finally at the last second.
I know. Sometimes you're not the first person that said that. That's like all of the sudden that there's been this moment or a fishing
Yeah.
trip or God being like, change directions, my man. So I
Yeah.
love that has happened. But writing for the project, what song gave you the most just pain in the ass trouble that maybe you felt like was surgery getting through, and then versus a song that came out super naturally? I mean, the songwriters on this
Yeah.
project are just so fun and diverse.
I think honestly, Deer on the Wall took the longest.
Really?
Um, because like it's so easy to get corny with a song about deer.
Yeah.
And so in my head, it was like finding the right words, also making it funny because it was a legit argument between me and Nat, but also not making Nat sound mean because she's like the nicest person ever. But that was like probably the hardest one to wrangle together. I think we still did a bunch of the day we actually recorded the song. I deleted the second verse that I originally had, and it wasn't until the day I sang the vocal that I rewrote the second verse. So that one took some surgery, and it turned out perfect. So that was probably the hardest. And then the easiest two were probably Hang It Up and Mid-20s Crisis. Those kind of just fell out. Yeah.
I love it. I love that you bring Hang It Up because that's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah, let's go. Is it?
But it was my favorite. I have lots of favorites, but that one struck me as my favorite. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to ask him selfishly like all of the questions I want to ask him about the song as a fan. Why did you stick it at number 7? It is smack dab in the middle of your album. Why did it need to be in the middle? Or was that
Hang It
even a
Up.
thought for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything. I went through all the titles and put them together like very strategically. Where if you're listening top to bottom, it's dynamic enough to where you're not like listening to too many up tempos or too many of these at one time. And I think if I'm not wrong, it's right beside Shop Radio.
Mm.
And I feel like Shop Radio is like really cool country coming off of I Never Miss, and then having Hanging Up right behind it just felt like I was just gonna keep bringing you down with the thing, and I don't know, it just felt right to put it there.
I love it. I want to talk to you about your album art, kind of skipping around here a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of misleading. It's
Yeah.
kind of sad. So talk to me about the decision and the creative choice for the album art. I mean, I keep on putting emphasis debut project, but
Yeah.
again, you're talking about looking back. You don't just want your name on it. The album art must have had a lot of significance. Talk to me about that too.
Yeah, we just were trying to find the right, like I said, we took all these pictures before we even knew.
Yeah.
Um, and Powers, he's my photographer. He took all these pictures. He's amazing. And I just we were in that field and I was like, hey, just take some, or he was like, just take some steps. I'm gonna take some stuff you looking back. Cause if you're like looking back on this record one day, it could be cool. And just like looking back on your life. And then when I wrote Mid-20s Crisis, it paired perfect with that picture of me just kind of looking back on that. So it's kind of mysterious, I feel like. And so it fit perfect. You know, it's not like a random picture of me with my arms crossed looking to the left, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool.
My girlfriend, who's also a huge fan of yours as well and very
Yeah.
excited, she was there that night. She was in the Christmas card, but we made a joke that Dylan Scott, you guys should do like a fake photo, like album cover, and Dylan should be like peeking out from somewhere like in the back.
Yeah.
Do like a faux album cover.
That's fair. Make a fake one. He'd probably enjoy that.
Make a fake one and drop it and be like, surprise, it's out now. And like
Yeah.
Dylan's lurking in the background. But I want to go back to Mid-20s Crisis. I feel like obviously, I love that God spoke to you. I'm a faithful person. I know you are too. I think that makes this project even more meaningful for you. But what kind of headspace were you in? Clearly, you're tired. It's 4 a.m. But like,
Yeah.
when you wrote this, like what kind of headspace were you in? I mean, you're obviously younger than I am, but I feel like the whole project kind of encapsulates things that you go through in that
Yeah.
very odd decade of your life. But what kind of headspace were you in?
Yeah. Probably the toughest one of my life, honestly. We're kind of taught as like dudes to be pretty tough. But I feel like if you're writing a song like that, you kind of got to be a little vulnerable. And I don't know. I just was in a season of like comparing myself to a bunch of other people. With social media, it's kind of tough nowadays, especially to look past it, especially if you've been doing it for X amount of years and somebody that's been doing it for 10 minutes flies past you. That's pretty difficult to look at sometimes if you don't have your horse blinders on. But I think just compare myself a bunch and wondering why I'm not where I should be or if I am where I should be. And um also the first year and a half of me being married, I think I've spent more time with my band than my wife. So that's pretty tricky sometimes figuring that out. So I think all this stuff, like I was saying earlier, like it feels like a crisis is when like multiple things seem to pile on top of you at once. And so I felt like all these things were just sitting on me. And honestly, writing this song helped kind of get all of it off my chest. It kind of helped like heal me a little bit. So hopefully it can heal some other people and they can relate to it.
I love it. Let's talk about being in the studio. I feel
Yeah.
like you are one of those guys that loves to have fun in the studio. Is there a memory that really stands out from a day you were recording or something that you'll really hold on to from making this project?
Yeah, I think every so Joe is really great about when I have ideas, he's not like, "Hey, I'm the producer, shut up." Like he's like, "Yeah, what you got? Like help me out." So a lot of the cool stops on like Heaven's Sake, like the really rocky stuff was a lot of like me and Joe collaborating on just like what would be fun to play live? Like how do we record this to when we play it live? It's really fun for the band and for me and for the fans. And so I think just all the collaboration between me and Joe has just been really, really fun on the whole record.
I love it. I want to talk to you about your wife, your sweet,
Yeah.
sweet wife. I love that she is bringing you into the world of TikTok. The little thing you guys have going, please continue that because it's like the funniest thing ever. But I sometimes feel like your wife is your ultimate A&R.
Yeah.
What was her thought? Did she ixnay anything? Did she really push you to fight for a song to be on the record? What was Nat's kind of involvement in all of this?
Yeah, she's just real supportive. So she knows how like particular I am and specific I am. So I run stuff past her and she gives me her opinion and it's all, you know, she helped me kind of come up with the order while we were going through Alaska one day. Like I was like, "Hey, I got to pick the order for this record," and I was driving, so she was like, "All right, give me your phone and let's figure it out." So she kind of me and her kind of handpicked the order, how we thought that it would be fun to listen to it, and yeah, she plays a big part in it for sure.
I love it. I love it. I want to go back to what challenged you. I know you've kind of hinted at
Yeah.
challenging things throughout this process, but what challenged you, I think, maybe the most during this process of putting out a debut album?
Probably going through all the mixes
Oh,
because
really?
I'm so particular. Like some songs I only need 2 mixes and some songs I needed 10 to get it right. Um I I want I want to hear like the songs, like the up songs, like the songs that are really hype. I want to hear them in my truck and I want the guitars to like hit me in my brain. Yeah, exactly. And I want my truck to rattle when I'm listening to them. And then the songs that aren't like Mid-20s Crisis and Hanging Up, like I really want to hear the emotion in my voice and I really want people to be able to like take that. So that was probably the hardest part is narrowing it down. And finally, I think even now there's changes I would make, but I think at some point I just had to be like, okay, it's done. I got to stop thinking about it. And honestly, I haven't gone back and listened to the record in probably a month and a half because I know there's going to be things I want to change. So I just don't even listen to it.
Smart. Was there any demo-itis? That is a new word that I have been
Yeah.
introduced to. Did you have a case of demo-itis at all during this?
Um, I want to say maybe Hungover in a Deer Stand was
Okay.
hard to let go of the demo because David Garcia did the demo and he's really good. And maybe There Goes That. The demo was really swaggy, but the only bad thing is the demo was a little too poppy for me. So we wanted it to be a little more traditional and a little more organic sounding. So having to get used to how it is now was
Yeah.
kind of tricky. But for the most part, I mean, Joe always crushes it. He always is insane, and I have demo-itis, and then I listen to the record, and then 2 months later I listen to the demo and I go, oh, okay, the record's way better. But it's so hard to let go of sometimes because you get so used to the demo.
I love it. But I feel like collectively, this is the best you've ever sounded. Not that you sounded like crap before,
Yeah,
but I feel like there's this mature, confident, extremely charismatic person on the other side of the speaker. Why
yeah,
was it so important for you to get the sonics right? Because I feel like you have grown as a person and as a songwriter how important was it for you to get the sonics right to kind of meet you where you're at right now in your life?
Yeah, super important. I mean, on Boys Back Home, the original master was like 3 years ago. So when Dylan agreed to to put it out, I had to go back and re-sing it because I sounded like 2 years younger than I did when we re-recorded it back in October. So it's really important. And just everything. Yeah, I mean, putting songs out and seeing people's reaction definitely gives you like a confidence boost to go in and just like really sing the best you can, and just letting loose really in the studio and being comfortable with Joe. And I mean, we don't rent like this really fancy studio to do vocals. We just do it at his office in his room, and that's where I feel most comfortable at. And sometimes the air conditioner turns on and that might be in the track too. You never know. So
If you listen really closely, no, I'm kidding. But what do you hope your fans get out of this album? Your fans have been clamoring for new music for a hot second. And every time you put something out, it goes just berserk. I mean, I was reading the TikTok comments. I love that you're like on TikTok now too. I giggled a little bit. But people are like, when is this coming? When is this coming? What do you hope your fans get out of this?
I hope they just kind of take away how, authentic I tried to be, and how everything has a purpose on this record. Where the song sits on the record, and how I hope it makes you feel listening to it. I hope they can just take away like all the intentionality that was put into it.
Country Confidential.